Good morning and welcome to Rising. What we have for you today is a show, believe it or not, and we're about to get to it. I'm joined again by Kevin Walling. Nice to see you, Kevin.
Good to be back. Thanks, Robby, for having me.
All right, let's get to our top news story. President Biden scheduled to make a speech today championing what he describes as a strong economy following the Fed's rate cuts yesterday. Federal Reserve slashed interest rates by half a point, marking their first cut since 2020. Fed Chair Jerome Powell explained what was the thinking behind the move. Let's watch.
You know, the U.S. economy is in a good place, and our decision today is designed to keep it there. More specifically, the economy is growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down closer to our 2% objective over time. And the labor market is still in solid shape. So our intention is really to maintain the strength that we currently see in the U.S. economy.
Powell also signaled that there could be further cuts down the road. This all comes as inflation has plummeted from a high of 9% in June of 2022 to 2.5% last month. Much better. Still, polls have consistently shown that inflation remains a top concern for voters. Recent YouGov poll found that 67% of Americans feel inflation is a very serious problem, and a big part of that are concerns about groceries and housing prices. Compared with 4 years ago, grocery prices are up about 20% per the Consumer Price Index. Now, as for housing prices, since 2019, prices have surged 54%, according to the Washington Post. Tough luck if you're looking to buy. Vice President Kamala Harris tried to acknowledge that pain in a statement, writing, quote, "While this announcement is welcome news for Americans who have borne the brunt of high prices, my focus is on the work ahead to keep bringing prices down. I know prices are still too high for many middle class and working families, and my top priority as president will be to lower the costs of everyday needs like healthcare, housing, and groceries."
Harris then highlighted her plans to cut taxes, pass a ban, of course, on corporate price gouging, and build new homes. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, also reacted to the Fed news while at his rally in North Carolina.
But the Fed cut the interest rate today by 0.5 percentage point, going to alleviate inflation for a lot of people. And so if you have any reaction to that, we'd love it.
Well, look, my reaction is My reaction is a 0.5 point is nothing compared to what American families have been dealing with for the last 3 years.
Well, former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted, quote, "The Federal Reserve cut interest rates massively just 48 days ahead of the election. Thank God for the independence of the Fed. Funny how some of us last year predicted exactly this would happen." In his speech today before the Economic Club of Washington, Biden will declare that the economy has reached the turning point he has long worked for in his administration. He'll point to the cooling inflation data and how borrowing costs have started to fall. The White House Chief of Staff told reporters that, quote, "The president knows that this is not a time for a victory lap, which is why he will also talk about the work ahead." President Biden will stress the need for further action to bring down the costs of American consumers' daily needs.
Wow, we're going to hear from Joe Biden. What a treat.
One-on-one, I think,
president,
in this
amazing.
economic forum today in Washington, D.C.
Touting a little bit of good news, though, as we noted, food costs still very, very high. Americans feeling that pain when they go to the grocery store. Housing prices absolutely out of control, bonkers, bad, terrible. But, you know, a little bit of good news. It sounds like the right is reacting to this. Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, et cetera. You know, with some skepticism that this is a move being made independently of the Democratic administration's desire to win the election.
Well, certainly it's great timing, right? It's certainly great timing.
To shore up the good economy right before the election.
Yeah. But I mean, prognosticators for the economy had said that this is likely to happen either 0.5% or 0.25% heading into that Fed meeting yesterday. I mean, they were saying for years, looking now at inflation coming down, that this was likely going to be the first meeting where Jerome Powell took this action. But again, timing is everything in politics, and certainly we're seeing the stock market in real time this morning react to that favorable news from the Fed yesterday.
Yeah. So it is good news, and you know, Americans will be happy to hear that. Although they're still not at all happy about the economic situation. Like I said, they're feeling that pain, and I think the question is going to become, you know, who do they trust to fix it the rest of the way? To fix housing prices, to fix grocery prices, to fix gasoline prices, to fix car insurance prices have been through the roof, all of that kind of stuff. And you know, polls have been showing that Trump is actually, even though there's a very close election, Trump is more trusted on economic issues than Joe Biden was.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris, I don't know that she's put forth a plan to explain, or the plans she's put forth are not, I would say they're not good plans, and they've not been well received by a lot of economists. Just throwing more money at the housing problem, first-time home buyers are going to get $25,000. Well, how does that doesn't fix, there's a supply shortage of housing. You need to probably deregulate in places. You need to do zoning reform so that you can build more houses. A lot of the problem is that places where we want to build more, multi-family dwellings, tall apartment buildings, it's zoned, it's regulated so that you can't do that. So we have artificial constraints on housing in California, in many major cities that are causing prices to skyrocket. It's a big problem here in the District of Columbia, where there's an artificial height cap on how tall the buildings can be, because I guess we all want to be able to see the Capitol from our rooftops.
Yep.
But it's a problem. It makes everything more expensive, and that's not going to be fixed by just giving people $25,000.
No, certainly, and we talked about this in yesterday's show, that the real crisis here is the lack of housing, and not just affordability, but literally the lack of physical occupied apartments, single-family homes, the like. And we have heard some plans from the vice president, heard some plans from the president, but obviously in that polling that we just shared, this is still top of mind, and it's something that people interact with on a daily basis when they go to fill up their tanks, when they go to the grocery store, and certainly I think the messaging is critical that we have reached that turning point, as Jeff Zients previewed about the president's speech today, but we're not there yet. And obviously we're still leading the world in terms of economic recovery. Coming out of COVID, certainly I'd much rather be the United States than any other of the G7 or other industrialized countries out there. But that pain is real for a lot of Americans, and which candidate effectively speaks to that pain will win in November.
I think often Democrats and Republicans both fail to thread the needle on that, because Democrats want to pretend everything's fine. It's all great. Look, and
President Biden got in some trouble for that. Just
yes.
He was kind of stubborn, and I was a Biden guy, of just saying, we're great, we're beating the world, all this kind of stuff, without acknowledging the facts and that's why he took such a hit, I think, in that polling.
Sometimes on the other side, though, Republicans are like, you're living through a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It is Fury Road out there. You must barter your skin for food. And okay, that's not quite the situation we are.
Got some extremes, certainly.
We're beating most of the world. It's still better to be in America than
100%.
anywhere else. And rah rah, go America. Republicans have sometimes turn their back on that a little bit too much. I'll hear the right time about it. I'm like, okay, let's address the problems, because there are certainly numerous problems. Some problems that are unique to America. Our violence problem is way worse. I think our mental health problem is way worse.
Yep.
Our healthcare system is a mess. Donald Trump didn't have great ideas for how to fix that.
The contours of a plan are still out there.
We have the concepts of a plan.
The concepts of a plan, yeah.
But does Kamala Harris have a plan? I don't know. I don't think I've heard nearly enough from her on what her plans are. When she puts forth a plan, it's something that doesn't make sense. She doesn't do. I just saw that her and Walz have at this point done fewer sit-down interviews than any other Democratic ticket ever before at this point in the election. Someone who had randomly, it was sprung on her at the last moment. We don't know what she plans to do, and she's thinking that'll be good enough because it's close. Don't say anything because you might say something wrong. And I don't know if that's a winning campaign strategy. It might be.
It's winning right now in terms of looking at her favorability numbers and things like that. I mean, it's still head-to-head, obviously neck and neck, but she has certainly increased her position over her former running mate in terms of the polling lineup, so there's something to be said for that.
I guess she thinks talking is a losing strategy. Maybe it is.
Not for us, though.
Not for us.
On Rising, certainly.
No, more Rising coming up. We will continue speaking, actually, in just a few minutes, so stay with us.